everybody. Welcome to our February Seek Safely Roundtable discussion. My name is Jean Brown, and I'm joined here by Ginny Brown and Dr. Glenn Doyle. Ginny is Seek's founder. Dr. Doyle is one of our board members. And we're going to have a discussion tonight about sort of how self-help has evolved over the years and what self-help looks like today compared to what we kind of tend to think of as self-help. You know, we at Seek, we've always kind of recognized that seeking is something that people have been doing for a really long time.
Seeking is absolutely part of the human condition. People are always going to seek because part of the internal thirst of every person is to grow and to learn and to expand. And, you know, people do that in very traditional ways, learning skills, developing a talent, going to school. And part of our thirst is to find meaning and purpose, too. So in the past, a lot of traditional situations provided that for people, whether it was traditional educational institutions or religions. And then when people would stumble and want change, people might seek therapy. Self-help has developed, I believe, as kind of an alternative to some of that, especially for folks who may have been disappointed by those more traditional ways of expanding and growing.
Exactly.
You know, and I can kind of piggyback on that, you know, as somebody who's been just immersed in the self-help world for decades. I mean, I really came to it as a teenager. You know, my whole thing with seeking and getting involved in self-help it wasn't even about being disappointed with kind of the traditional ways of seeking. Because again, I was a kid. I didn't really have those ways available to me. I think folks, you know, when we're aware of dissatisfaction, right? Like when we don't like how we're feeling and we don't like how we're functioning, the impulse is, well, man, there must be something else, right? Like there must be something I'm missing. There must be some way I can grow or evolve or whatnot. So I think the impulse to seek is actually super healthy. Like that's how we evolve, right? Like
Right.
It was selected for evolutionarily, like those organisms that seek tend to evolve and survive. So fundamentally, it's really healthy.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. Yeah, that's something we've always tried to emphasize at Seek. You know, we don't have a problem with seekers and with the idea of seeking. We think that's a very natural impulse. The idea is that we've always been after just making sure that, you know, the tools that are available to people are safe for them, safe and effective, so that people aren't, you know, spending energy, spending resources, putting these into these resources that aren't actually helpful.
It can go so wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. It can go
as we know, it can go very wrong.
Well, and we do know that, and like think about this. Like think about the fact that anything that human beings experience as fundamental and as drives, right? Like the drive to grow or to seek, expand, or to eat or to reproduce or whatever. There are always going to be people who are really interested in taking advantage of that.
Yeah.
And exploiting that, because they know that as long as humans are driven to do these things, there's going to be profit to be made.
There's a constant market for it.
Exactly.
Right.
So that's kind of what we're about. I like you said, we don't have a problem with seekers. We don't have a problem with you guys. So it's okay. We don't want anybody to die while doing it. We don't want anybody to be hurt while doing it.
We don't want people to lose lots of money, nor do we want people to lose a lot of time by seeking in the wrong place and in a place that, that's not going to be helpful for them.
Yeah.
So, you know, for us at Seek, it's interesting because we've been looking into the self-help industry since Kirby's death in 2009. And even in that period of time, which is, you know, 11 and a half years now, self-help has changed a lot from what it used to be. I think what we tend to think of as self-help, what tends to be the sort of pop culture depiction of it, you think about somebody listening to a series of CDs in their car
Mhm.
on the way to work.
Mhm.
Or we think about these big group seminars, which still happen.
Mhm.
And we think about books, self-help books, the self-help section in the bookstore, which again, it still exists. That stuff is all still there. But we're starting to see a shift in kind of how self-help is delivered. So one of the things with those more traditional means of delivery for self-help was that I think the barrier to entry was higher. You had to get a book deal and get published through a reputable publisher. You might have had to be vetted through traditional media before you could actually get some name recognition, which we know is not isn't the perfect gold star that means everything is good, but it's still sort of another level of vetting before everybody's begins to hear your name. And the costs were higher. Throwing a big seminar costs a lot of money, so you needed some capital. And it required more effort for the seekers to find you. Seekers needed to be actively looking for these things. It just sort of cut down on the number of self-help people that you would actually see gaining a lot of prominence in the industry. So there were always like a few big names everybody knew. Everybody knew Tony Robbins. Everybody knew Deepak Chopra. And of course, those guys are still around and they're still doing those more traditional methods of delivery. But we're seeing now that through social media and the internet, it has like expanded just in huge ways, and the ways that people are getting self-help has changed a lot.
I think that what has happened during this pandemic has also impacted that quite a bit, with people being home and not being able to go to big kinds of events. So, people have been on their computers, and that has also helped to propel this industry more to the internet. It was going that way anyway, but it's really propelled it more.
Yeah.
Well, it's been an interesting trade-off. By the by, for those watching and listening to us, there's a documentary that we at Seek kind of have a conflicted relationship with, titled "Enlighten Us," which focuses on James Arthur Ray, and partly on the Sedona tragedy. But part of what is discussed in that movie is actually a really interesting history of self-help and kind of how the movement evolved from this model of like, okay, so maybe you write a book, maybe it gets noticed, maybe that leads to speaking opportunities, and maybe that does lead to the seminars or the stadiums or whatnot. But the point is made that back in the day, it was really hard to break into the industry, largely because that whole vetting, and I don't even know how much of a vetting process was. It is a process of being noticed by traditional media. It was a real pain in the neck.
Right.
And again, there was a lot of resources and a lot of time were required. Dr. Wayne Dyer, the late Dr. Wayne Dyer had a story that he used to tell. It's like when he was trying to get noticed, he had written this book titled Your Erroneous Zones, which is a book about boundaries. It's a good book. But what he did was he would call around to bookstores like all across the country and kind of put on voices and ask about his book, his own book. Like, do you have that book by Dr. Wayne? And he would create buzz. But this is the kind of thing that you would kind of have to do. And there are parallels in other types of media, like comedians, actually, that really strikes me that professional comedians kind of face the same thing. There are hundreds of comedians out there trying to be, go on the Tonight Show and whatever. And so they kind of have to do what they have to do. But the interesting shift that's happened, Ginny, you mentioned the pandemic. So back in the day, and again, this is maybe a couple of years ago, not everybody can invest a week and go to Florida and go to Date with Destiny and spend 12 grand and do that. What the pandemic has interestingly done, there are some of these teachers like Tony Robbins and then our friend James Arthur Ray and others who are trying to do virtual versions of their events. Now they can't charge as much for them. No one's going to put up with that. Tony Robbins is trying hard to keep his rates really high, but no one's got time for that.
Yeah.
What has happened though is that as some of these teachers have been forced to bring their rates down a little bit because these are virtual events now, they're not in-person events. It's very much lowered the bar, like you said, Gene. It's lowered the bar in terms of entry, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So maybe you weren't able to travel to Las Vegas to attend a live James Arthur Ray event, and poor you if that was you. You just couldn't do it. That's just, you were missing out on so much. But if you couldn't do that or you weren't inclined to do that, well, now you can do it via Zoom.
Can. That's right.
So he's got so these teachers now have a lot more entry points, folks, which is, again, there's some upsides and some downsides. The thing that really bothers me is that the model that these guys use traditionally is kind of that pyramid shaped thing where, like, okay, so you get folks in with a kind of a low level commitment, right? But like you generally kind of ease or you gradually ease them into your ecosystem. Yeah. And before long, they've spent hundreds and hundreds of dollars, getting involved.
Exactly.
And the cognitive dissonance kicks in.
Yeah.
And they want to stay. They want to stay involved in the ecosystem and kind of work their way up, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, you want to prove your investment was worthwhile. So
now we have a situation where folks who might have had to start with the free seminar at the Ramada are now jumping in halfway through at like the mid-tier event because now it's cheaper, now it's more convenient.
Right.
It's problematic, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I also think some of the difference of not being in a room with a group of people creates a different dynamic, and there's positives and negatives to that. You can manipulate a group in the room to create a little bit of group think and a lot of group pressure. However, when people are consuming this at home at their computer, they're also alone. So there isn't anyone else there for them to process what they're hearing with either. Right. So they don't have the pressure of the group, but they might not have, the support of another person that they can kick these ideas around and say, hey, what did you think about that?
Absolutely.
So now they're alone. So it's very different, and, we will go back to more books and events and things like that. That will come back for sure. But we really, this field has changed. I think, Jean, when you've talked about how there's more merging of issues also. They're not siloed like they used to be. Yeah. Now if you start out talking about nutrition, all of a sudden, people are dispensing advice on marriage, or relationships, right?
Exactly. I think, one of the things that's happened on social media, even outside of the pandemic context, is that, you don't have to write a book anymore. You can just write a series of clever tweets or good, punchy Instagram posts, and anybody can do this. So you're getting these almost more constant bite-sized snippets of information from these people, some of whom are self-help providers, others are maybe just people who are good at marketing. And I think for sure you get that crossover where you get somebody who's a personal trainer or a nutritionist, but then they find they're just really good at motivating people, which is fine. But as long as they're not then starting to get into subjects that are really outside of their wheelhouse, like they start talking about, trauma issues, they really have no qualification to talk about that. They have no business talking about that. And like you said, when, the audience is removed, it's creating a situation where they're just on their own, and they could be ruminating over some of these issues on their own with no support system to carry them in the event that it's really impacting them.
Right.
It's really interesting to think about what thousands or hundreds of thousands of followers on social media implies in terms of what we would call referent power versus what used to be implied by having a best-selling book, right? Like, so somebody like, and I'll just take the example of Anthony Robbins. Like, so Tony Robbins has multiple best-selling books, and I don't just mean one. He had one hit, and then no, like every book he's written has been very popular. When you look at that on the cover of a book, like multiple times best-selling book, the implied message is, well, look, if this guy didn't know what he was talking about, why would all these people be buying his book? Like, these are clearly repeat customers. And now the investment to buy a book is not super high. I mean, like a hardback book, covering maybe $15. But that's different from, okay, I saw a tweet I liked, and then I followed the guy. And now the guy has 100,000 followers or whatnot. We have the same thought process of like, well, he must know what he's talking about, because why else would he have hundreds of thousands of followers?
Right.
And it's a nifty sleight of hand kind of trick, like when we talk about the changing environment. So even the vetting that used to come with, well, enough people like this guy. Oh, and by the way, but I don't know how easy it is to sue somebody over a tweet. If I, as a psychologist, write a book, and let's say, like, I'm a trauma specialist. Let's say I write a book about trauma, and I give really terrible advice. My patients are watching this going, yeah, and he gives really terrible advice sometimes. So just stay tuned. But let's say I do. Let's say I write a book and he gives really terrible advice. Let's say it hurts somebody. The publisher can get sued. I can get sued. Everybody can get sued. If I tweet something dumb and somebody takes it, in a way that I didn't intend, and that's harmful, can I get sued for that tweet? Somebody go, look, I'm a guy who tweeted a thing.
Or could you get pulled up before your ethics board?
Right.
So,
oh God, yes.
There's, when there aren't any certifications, when, people don't really have credentials, there's no accountability by an oversight group. As a licensed clinical social worker, there are standards that I have to adhere to, plus the fact that I have to have continuing education in my field. So it isn't just I can pick up a book and then just kind of talk about, gee, this is an interesting idea, and I'm just going to talk about it. And because I'm a good speaker or I have a charismatic way about me, people start to follow me when my amount of information is really pretty small. and I'm using one source as opposed to, when people go for education, they're learning a lot of stuff, not just reading one book. So,
and that same level of accountability just doesn't exist for your average person on social media. The other thing about that too is, like, as we learn more about sort of how a lot of the algorithms of social media work, we know that more controversial topics tend to go viral more easily. So that brings up, this point you're making, Glenn, about the number of likes or the number of followers being the new way of determining legitimacy. We know that that's really faulty.
It gets really sticky, especially when we're talking about people in pain or people who are vulnerable. Like an example that leaps to my mind is she's kind of a new age spiritual guru, Teal Swan.
She's always the one I think about when I think about numbers of followers, because she has tons of followers.
And it's such and she's such an interesting case, because if you ask her, I don't know her, but if you the reporters have asked her, like, dude, what are you doing? You're not a therapist. A lot of her content deals with very, very sensitive things like trauma and suicide and abuse and whatnot. But she'll tell you, no, I'm not a therapist. And by the way, I never said I was. I'm just somebody who lived through these things, and I might have something to say. Wait, you're going to tell me I can't say these things that I know from my lived experience? And I'm not going to tell anybody that, well, no, you can't say this thing because you don't happen to have a doctorate, et cetera, et cetera. But I have a useful thing to say over here because of my lived experience. If you take a look at what Teal Swan actually did, I mean, so she wrote a couple books. That was one thing. She now has the process. You can't call it therapy because it's not a therapist, but kind of the process that she invented to work through trauma issues is now online. Like, you can go to her website and you can find a practitioner who she has credentialed in her thing.
Right.
And that's where it gets really, really dodgy because, as we say, and I want to be super, super clear that Seek as an organization is not about no one is babysitting, anybody in terms of credentials and well, you shouldn't say this thing if you don't have a license, et cetera, et cetera. Useful stuff can come from all over. Where we're really, really concerned are those layers of accountability. Again, if something terrible happens with Teal Swan's completion process, how easy is it to come back to her and say, hey, I was doing therapy with your guy. And she's like, oh, no, you weren't. No, you weren't. I never said that. It's sticky.
Yeah.
So we got to raise awareness of these issues. These are things that we all have to carry around as kind of nuggets of awareness because again, there is no easy answer to it.
And there's no one size fits all. So I think a lot of times when people pick up a tool like that and then just automatically apply it to themselves, it might not work for them. When I sit with my clients, they're all very beautifully unique individual people. And I'm going to deal with them each person a little bit differently, depending on who they are. And then as they're struggling, they have me to work with to help them get through that. So a lot of times on self-help, when you're trying to work something yourself, you don't have another person to help you work through wherever you're stumbling. And that's also another problem that we can encounter. So, what we've always felt responsible for, or what we wanted to do in Seek, was help the seeker be more conscious, more aware. We would put up those red flags. If you see these, pay attention to them. And also the promise is, this is what you deserve. If your practitioner isn't treating you this way or isn't taking these steps and aren't being completely transparent and honest with you about their background and their experience, and if they're not really practicing what they're preaching, you might want to take a step back.
Yeah,
you deserve better. You
deserve better than that. Yeah,
and there are good resources out there. So
there are great
there's no need to be sinking your effort and your money into a crappy resource, since there are a lot of good ones.
That's true.
The other thing, I find with the way that we're consuming self-help these days, and these smaller snippets of self-help and these inspirational people we come across on Instagram or something like that, I think it's really easy to end up consuming this kind of stuff without even realizing that you're consuming it. So, you're just flicking through your news feed on Facebook and a friend has shared a post from this, inspirational person who is posting all this stuff all the time and maybe has a blog and then also has seminars or whatever. Or, you're on Instagram and the same thing happens. You just come across a quote that you think is oh yeah, that's pretty good. And it's really easy to just sort of slide into following someone without having even been intending to find that resource in the first place, which, can be fine. You can come across some really great things just by stumbling on them, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I think one of the things we're starting to focus on with Seek is trying to get people to think more intentionally about, if you're going to put some effort into this process of self-improvement, you need to set some goals, set a clear vision for yourself, and gain some self-awareness before you jump into anything. And, my concern with this passive consumption of self-help is that you never go through any of that self-reflection, but then you're suddenly following some self-help provider. And it started out with an inspirational quote, and then you're spending money on a seminar or, a virtual event or whatever. So we want people to, start to think about that a little more and be aware of that.
Well, and we should point out that Jean, what you're describing is a really normal, natural thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
That happens to humans. It's the same. Where like no one is at all saying that. Well, you're so easily led that you're going to wind up following a guru without even you're so dumb. It's not how it works.
No,
it's the same principle as advertising.
Yeah. Exactly.
Like we know that one of the reasons why advertising is even a thing is that even if you're not completely paying attention to a message, even if the message annoys you, we take in what we are repeatedly exposed to. Now, the way that social media kind of rules the world these days has significantly changed marketing. Marketers know that they can just put their words and flash their words again and again and again, and they will take root kind of in our brains. Self-help gurus are doing the same thing because they're selling products.
Yeah, for sure.
They're selling products, and it's really important to keep in mind that I always tell my folks, and I'm no exception. People follow my social media presence. I don't write tweets that I don't think are going to get retweeted. I don't write posts that I don't think people are going to share. Of course, my goal is to get more reach and whatnot. It's really important to kind of wonder, to kind of ask yourself the question of all right, so if this guru, if this provider, if this person had exactly their way, what would my behavior be? And very often the answer is I can't help but notice that at the end of every inspirational quote comes a pitch for the virtual seminar.
Right.
Can't help but notice that there's that repeated pitch for well, if you liked this quote, you'll really like this. So
there's more where that came from.
Except a lot of these guys, there's less. There's much less.
Well, I just love when you've gone down the rabbit hole of 10 minutes with someone who's leading you up to the big reason why, and then it's sign up for the seminar, and you're like, really? I started clicking on this because it was really interesting, and and then I get there and I'm like, no. So
they do it. I mean, clickbait is such a thing too. Like anybody who spends any time on YouTube knows that titles of YouTube videos are intentionally crafted that way. The reason you do the stuff you do.
Right.
I have to know.
The one secret. And you look at it and it's like a 5-minute video. And part of you, and this is kind of what I've, again, as a self-help fan for years, self-help people are my people. I get, we have this quirk in our brains where we see something like that, and our first impulse is, I don't know, maybe. What if I watched this 5-minute video and I learned the reason I do the stuff I do? Can I live with myself not having done that? I don't know. And we know you're not going to watch a 5-minute video and discover the secrets of existence, and yet we still have kind of that, it comes full circle to that seeking thing. It's like, look, I really do want to know why I do the stuff that I do. Bringing awareness to the process can really change the game. Bringing it, so when you click on that video, again, having in your brain, okay, a marketer came up with this title. Let's just be mindful of that.
I tell you, my kids learned that lesson early on in the pandemic. We started watching, just fill the time during the days. We started watching a lot of YouTube videos, and they love bugs and weird creatures and sea creatures and stuff. So, we'd be watching a video about animals, and then they'd see the next video, and it would be it would have some fantastical looking creature on it. And it would be the top 5 most incredible creatures in the world. And they'd be like, oh my God, I want to see that. And we'd get to the end of the video, And the thing that was, the image, like the thumbnail image for the video, is never in the video because it's not real.
Yeah.
And the kids they would be like, but where's that thing that we saw? Like we watched the whole video because we wanted to see that one thing. And I was like, that is how it works, my friend. And like now they're over it because they know how it goes.
Yeah.
So you're right.
Yeah.
It's that having that awareness of sort of how the game is played is important.
Right.
So one thing we had written about on the website quite a while ago, Jean, was the whole concept of guru literacy. Just like you have to have media literacy.
Yeah.
So guru literacy, so that you're more conscious and more aware of the ploys and the potential pitfalls, because you don't want to miss good help, because there is good help out there, and there are some amazing and wonderful people that have wonderful things to say that can be very helpful. So you don't want to miss the good help because you're getting pulled in by someone who's mainly a marketer.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So on that note, now that we've come to through this whole discussion, here's the pitch.
How much is it going to cost me?
Our event is completely free, so
sign up for the Seek Safely Plus network. It's a streaming platform. It's just me talking at you 24/7.
Oh my God,
it's intolerable.
So yeah, on that note, we have an event coming up on March 6th, and it's sort of a seekers retreat. We haven't done an event like this yet, so we're really excited to test it out. But this is all about putting the focus on the seeker, creating a sort of personalized, intentional approach to this process of seeking. So if you know that you're somebody who likes those inspirational people on Instagram, or you tend to pick up self-help books a lot, or you like to watch those kinds of videos, or you've spent money on seminars or any of these types of resources, we want to help you create a very intentional approach to that process, so that you're not going to get sucked into something that doesn't work well for you, or that maybe doesn't really fit with your values. So we've created an exercise that's based on a compass, and it really creates that more personal sort of guide for you. So yeah, we're doing this event on Zoom on March 6th from 2 to 4 in the afternoon Eastern time. And it's going to be me, Ginny, the doc, and also Deborah Goldstein.
And Glenn Doyle.
Doc and Glenn Doyle. He's just splitting. And yeah, Deborah is one of our other really awesome board members. So you can sign up for it on our website. I'm going to put a little thing up for that.
Just to kind of piggyback on what Jean is explaining, something again, as a huge fan of self-help, as somebody, self-help probably saved my life once upon a time. I can say that the idea that you're going to get hooked up with a lousy self-help practitioner is pretty foreign to a lot of people's brains. It's this idea that, like, well, sure, we know they're out there, but not my guy. My guy's awesome.
Yeah.
So something that we at Seek really want to underscore, that it's not a matter of we're not trying to patrol anything. We're not trying to police self-help. What we really want is to enhance your self-help journey. So what we're going to be describing at this Seekers Retreat, and we're kind of going to be leading you through examples of kind of how to fit it to your own journey and whatnot. It's actually going to enhance, like, so any provider you work with, any path you follow, this will only enhance your journey. Like, it's not going to be a matter of you're going to be gun shy or anything like that. You're going to be it's a tool for thinking in a much deeper way about your journey. It's really, really cool. I'm really jazzed to share it with you guys. So
yeah,
good.
Yeah, we're excited too. It's really, empowerment is part of the acronym of Seek. And that's what this is all about. It's empowering you to have an efficacious journey and a safe journey.
Good.
So, yeah. So we hope you'll join us. Like I said, there's the information there. You can go to our website, seeksafely.org, and look under the resources section. You'll see Seekers Retreat, and you can sign up, see a little more information, and then sign up right in there.
Okay.
All right.
It's a friendly bunch. It's going to be a good time.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you, Jean.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Okay.
Good
Thanks
to
for
see
watching.
you, everybody. Later, taters.
Yep.
Have a good weekend.